again, episode 63, live from my drum room. And please welcome my very, very special guest, the great Nate Morton.
Oh, yes.
And there he
Oh,
is.
hey, look at that.
Look at that.
I was just hanging out over here, and then look who pops up. It's Johnny D. How are you, buddy?
I'm great, buddy. I know you never know where I'm going to pop up.
Exactly, exactly. I'm just making this full screen here so I can see you. Boom.
Boom.
All right.
It's
How are you,
great to
kiddo?
see you. I'm great, buddy. I'm great. And thank you again for doing this. I was just telling everybody watching, you were nice enough to do this in between. Um, you're at a taping today of The Voice, and this
We
is the
are.
second to last show of the season.
This is the second to last results show. So next week, so today is the results show. We just did our dress rehearsal this morning, and now I'm
Yeah.
on a little bit of a break, and then we're going to shoot the show this afternoon, this evening. And then next week we'll have a performance show on Monday, and then our final results show where we'll announce, the winner of the whole thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So it really is. I mean, so you don't know. I mean, not that I would even ask you
Mm.
but you don't. It's still in process. It's not like you've taped all these shows weeks
Oh
ago,
no,
and
no.
no,
This
this
is
is
all
all really.
live.
It's
Oh
all
yeah.
live.
And tonight we have what do we have? Do we have 9 or 10 left? But tonight, certain people after tonight will no longer be on the show. And I don't know who that is. And that's all very obviously very hush hush and very, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
secret. Um, but yeah, no, we're right in the middle of it.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. You don't have to answer this question, Nate, but are you glad to see some of these people gone? Do some of them kind of bother you, and you just want to? No, I'm kidding. I no, I know you would never, even if you thought that, you would never
No,
say that, knowing
the
you.
funny well, the funny part about it is I wish that none of them would ever go away and that the show was year round. I wish the season never ended.
Yeah, exactly. What a great gig, and what a like the perfect gig for you. I want to I sort of hinted around about this off the air, but now that we're on the air, I was thinking about, since we connected over the weekend, um, how far back we go, and by my estimation, it's nearly 30 years, maybe not quite, but pretty close to 30 years when you were at Berkeley,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that was like the early 90s.
Yes, I went to Berkeley in 1991. I went to Berkeley in 1991 and I was there from 91 to 94.
Okay,
And it's
yeah.
funny too because occasionally I'll meet people since subsequently who went there and I'll go, "Oh, when were you there?" And they'll go, "Oh, I graduated in 2014." And I go, but yeah, no, 91 to 94, I was there. And then
Yeah,
hung
yeah.
around Boston and did some playing until moving out here in 98.
Right. Well, a buddy of mine who you might remember, great drummer, local drummer named Mike Rigello,
Mm.
is on watching right now. And he said, I remember seeing Nate at the Grog with Search Party. Great,
Wow.
great drummer and super nice person.
Ah, well, that's very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. And Pat Petrillo says hello, by the way.
Hey, Pat Petrillo, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so Mike Rigello's comment is a perfect segue, because by my recollection, I remember you were at Berkeley, and you were prone to maybe breaking China cymbals from time to time, or which happens.
Yeah,
The best of
that's
them break.
before that's before that's before either you or John King told me the proper way to hit a cymbal and to not go straight into it, which is what I was doing, especially on China's.
Yeah, but I mean, that's all the, you have plenty of technique, and you know how to. I mean, Chinas are prone to breaking. They're curved, and they're thin, but I just remember you were the most nicest, most polite, and you were a Berkeley student. You weren't an endorser yet. You weren't an artist, but you
Right.
were just this nice guy. The girl at the front desk would say, Nate Morton's on the phone. He wants to come down and trade out a cracked cymbal or something. Yeah, okay. And you were always just so, oh, thank you. I've got this gig, and I love your stuff. And I'm going to just fast forward a little bit, because, I knew you as just this, and I'd see you at Berkeley. I'd go up for some sort of Berkeley event, and you'd be, of course, hanging out at the show, and Omar Hakim or somebody might be there, and you'd be, hey, John, hey, Nate. And then fast forward, I'm judging the Guitar Center drum offs.
Yes, yes.
And was that around 93 or
I feel
94?
like that's 94. I feel like that's
94.
94, John. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
I figured you'd remember because, there you were, no, no surprise, a finalist in the drum offs. And that was the first time I saw you play.
Ah,
And I, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong. I could be fantasizing this in my own mind, but I feel like after that, I said to you, we got to sign you up, man. We got to, whether you win this contest or not, like you're for real.
well, that's very nice of you. I'm smiling just reflecting on that, just that whole experience and that whole time period, and just being at Berkeley and just the things that I was exposed to, and then obviously meeting you and that and everything. And it's just making me smile. I'm also picturing. I can see it in my head playing, and I remember because I had just started growing my dreads. I remember that was the point when my hair
Yes,
was getting longer rather than
that's right.
shorter.
You,
And yes,
yeah,
that was definitely sort of the beginning of our relationship. I feel like we had met before then, but I feel like that was sort of the nice like kickoff to a wonderful friendship.
absolutely. Yeah. And I forgot. Yeah. You definitely were growing your hair, your dreads were getting longer and
Yeah.
you still look, I mean, you look exactly the same 30 years later, but you had like this
Mm,
baby face, like you just had this cute little baby face and you were just always like smiling and happy, like,
yes.
just, and then you just tore the shit out of it when you got up to
Well,
play. I just remember.
it was interesting, looking back on that. I mean, nowadays the drum off, I don't think it's happened for the past couple of years, recently because of the
Yeah.
pandemic, and I think before that, I think Glenn Noyes, who that was his brainchild, I think he sort of decided to give it a little bit of a break. But looking back on it, I mean, that was before the drum off was an Olympic event. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now it's an Olympic event. Now what guys are doing is like magic. I literally wait for someone to literally take off their hat and pull a rabbit out, in the middle of the drum solos that guys are playing nowadays. It's that, you know, you know what I mean, over the top. It is ridiculous. But I
Make the
remember,
drum
I
set
remember,
disappear. Yeah.
uh huh, uh huh, uh huh. I remember at the time approaching it. And it's funny because I practiced, but I didn't script anything. I didn't have anything written. I hadn't played any, transcribed. Here's what I'm going to do. Basically, my method of preparing for that was I practiced as much as I could. I worked on as many different ideas as I could. And then in that moment, my primary aim was to forget all of it.
Yeah.
It was literally to forget all of it and just kind of let whatever falls out fall out. And I
Yeah.
had never done
Yeah.
anything like that before or since. I mean, I'm not a drum solo, guy. And so I do recall though, that was like my idea, was just like let something fall out, whatever it may be. So
I can remember clearly. I swear. I mean, I don't remember exactly what you played, but what I remember, what made you stand out from pretty much everybody that night was you were so musical as a young guy, that a lot of younger players, it takes a while to develop that maturity to play that musically. And you had that like musicality that like you think about Omar Hakim playing on with Weather Report when he was in his early
sure,
20s,
sure.
or Peter Erskine or something. I mean, you had that sort of like maturity as a early 20-year-old, 20-something-year-old. And I remember, there were moments where you played some chopsy stuff because that's part of the you got to, you got to have a little of that in there. Yeah. But I just remember you just like you grooved your ass off. It was musical. It was funky. It was like it really stood out. And I was Joey Kramer a judge that night too. I know I judged one with Joey one time. I wasn't sure if it was that
I
one, but
don't remember Joey Kramer, and this is awful for me to say. You're actually the only judge that I remember. I don't
oh
remember who the
well,
other judges were. I honestly don't remember who they were. Um, I feel like I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say what Joey Kramer was not, because I feel like had he been, I feel like I would remember that.
yeah,
I
I'm
think,
sure you would have. Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
but yeah, you were
I
obviously the most memorable.
well, and you were too. I'm telling you, like I judged a bunch of those, and that's the one I remember. Really, honestly,
Well,
like,
thanks.
um, yeah, a killer. And then yeah, so and I remember, yeah, you were in the area for a while, and then you moved out to LA
Yep,
in the late '90s,
yep,
and then
yep.
is that when you sort of was it? I know you played, you did some touring with some bands too. Like what happened when you got out to LA? I guess I'll let you take it from
Well,
there.
sure, sure. I mean, I had done a handful of gigs in Boston. Um, I toured with Dale Bozio,
Oh
formerly of
yes.
Missing Persons at that time. So we had done that, and I had traveled with her to the West Coast. And so I was coming up on this time in the late '90s where I felt like, okay. In fact, point of fact, at one point I was actually sort of busy in Boston playing in a variety of cover bands, Search Party
Yeah.
being one. Search Party was like a reggae slash calypso slash pop group that I played in. And then I was playing in a rock band called Big Hum. And I was playing with an original band called Chuck. And I was doing, Sunday morning jazz brunch gigs. So I was busy. I was
Yeah.
fortunate to be busy. And I remember sort of driving around looking at houses, for sale and so on, and actually pondering, because at that point I still lived in an apartment. And that was actually the point that I was like, well, wait, I kind of feel like maybe I didn't go to Berklee College of Music so that I could settle in Boston and play in Boston for the rest of my life,
Yeah. Yeah.
And then this was kind of concurrent with, I would see guys on talk shows playing with a new artist, and whatever that talk show may have been, I would think to myself, that person has that gig because that person lives where that gig is. And I felt like that gig's not going to find me in Boston. So
Yeah.
that was essentially people said, weren't you afraid to leave Boston? Weren't you afraid to move from Boston? And my sort of response was, I was more afraid to stay, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a good
so
answer.
that's what
Yeah.
drove it. That's what drove it. That's
Yeah.
what drove it. And so I wound up moving out to Los Angeles, and I did what you do when you move to a town and you don't have a gig, which is you call every possible person who could in some way lead you to a gig, and you go and you hear friends who are performing play, and you exchange numbers and you network and you do all those things. And some of the earliest gigs that I got, or some of the earliest, I'll say, auditions that I was called for, came through a guy here in LA named Barry, and he had gotten my number or my name from a handful of people, and I was fortunate to go on a few of those auditions and land a few, and that's kind of the way the ball started rolling. I'll never forget. I think my
Wow.
first my first audition once living in LA was for an artist named Billie Myers. She had a big single called Kiss the Rain, and I remember that was my first audition while living in Los Angeles, right? So I go in and the audition is on a, let's say, Wednesday. We audition all day, myself, and at that time it would have been a cattle call. So it would have been,
Mm.
20 or more drummers. And at the end of the day, everybody goes home. Get a call that night. Okay, we would like you to come for a callback. The callback is tomorrow, 11 a.m. So 11 a.m., there's me again, and now there's a smaller handful of drummers. And then as the evening wears on, there are fewer and fewer as guys are being told, okay, we're totally good. Thank you for coming out. And then it gets down. And then it's finally, in the end, it's myself and a drummer named Joey K. Outstanding, outstanding player. So finally, in the end, it comes down to myself and Joey K. And they tell Joey, they say, thank you very much, but I think you can go now. And then I'm the only guy there. And I'm looking around and I'm like, it looks like it's just me. And so basically, but here's the funny part. Here's the funniest part of that whole thing to me is that occurred. So we're there all day auditioning. That probably occurred around 8. And essentially when they said, okay, you guys are the band, by the way, we're playing Vibe tomorrow night. If you remember that show, Vibe, it was
Yes.
hosted
Yeah.
by Sinbad at the time. By the way, we're playing Vibe tomorrow night. Rehearsal begins now. And so essentially it went straight from waking up that morning, like, do I have a gig or not? Am I going to get this gig? To the end of the night, we're rehearsing to play a TV show the next day. And in that moment, the whole point of that long story is in that moment, it was the realization of the, if you will, sort of, not premonition, but my sort of, my realization that that guy's on TV doing that gig with that artist because that guy lives there. And
Yeah.
so in that moment, I realized I live here now. I'm going to be on TV tomorrow doing this thing with this artist. My instinct was correct to make the move here.
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's,
It,
sorry for my long-winded story, but
no, that's
but
that's an
but but
excellent story.
at my age, all my stories are long-winded now, so I
Oh,
apologize.
oh, you don't know the half of it. Wait till you get to be my age.
I know that I'm old though, Johnny, because literally when I was a younger cat, I would hear guys my age, man, the one time I was on tour and we were in France and blah, 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 and they're telling these wonderful stories. And I would think to myself, wow, one day I'll be an old musician with stories too. And now I am.
I'll bet you anything that when you start telling your kids these stories, they just cut you right off at the knees, right? To go,
Well, usually because they probably all heard them several times
yeah,
already.
yeah.
So they're like, yeah, yeah, we know. Tour bus with no heat in the winter. We remember. You told us, Dad. Yeah, yeah, we know. The time you played Madison Square Garden, right? We got it, Dad. Way to go. You're real cool. You know,
Oh
can
man.
I play Nintendo now, please?
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think that's a huge life lesson for people because um, it's what you say. It's so true. It resonates so much that if you have to go where you're gonna be
You have to go where
seen,
the gig is. You have to
where
go
the
where the
gig
gig
is.
is.
Yeah,
I mean, to the extent that you can. Obviously, people have, there are people busy adulting and people busy lifing who can't just, pull up stumps and
yeah,
move to New York City or move to LA. But yes, I do get periodically, an email, Nate, I do all of the, the biggest gigs in, East Lansing.
yeah,
How do I take my, how do I get to the next level? And, in that case, if you are busy adulting in East Lansing and can't move to LA, then it's about like, okay, well, what's the next biggest city that I could conceivably move to? And that's a commitment that not everyone is willing to do, for one thing,
yeah,
and not
yeah,
everyone wants to do. I get it. There are people, there are people in some cities out there who are the biggest guy in that particular city, and they're happy being the biggest guy in that city. And they're like,
yeah.
no, I have a good situation going. So, I understand and relate to that as well. But for
Absolutely, yeah,
me, yeah, for me at what would I have been in my early 20s, 22, 23 years old, I definitely felt like there's another place I want to get to. And so I always liken it to this, like the big fish, small pond,
yeah.
analogy. And I always think to myself, I remember when I arrived in LA, it's really funny, Johnny. I can't believe, 20 plus years here has gone like this. I remember when I first moved here and I would go to jam sessions and I'd been here for 6 months, 8 months. And I would chat and meet musicians and go, oh, how long have you been here? And they would be like, oh man, I've been here for 5 years. I've been here for 7 years. And I just remember thinking like, that's so long. I remember that
Yeah.
being so long to me. And now it's been 20 like this. But back to the big fish, small pond, I feel like there was an extent to where in Boston, this is the way that I felt anyway. In Boston, I was busy. So I did feel a little bit like a big fish, small pond. And then when I
Sure.
moved, this is not to suggest I was doing every gig. I just mean, I was doing all right.
You were working.
When I
Yeah.
moved to
Yeah.
LA, right. When I moved to LA, I felt like, okay, you're a very, very, very little fish, but this is the last pond. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like it's like
Yep.
levels of a video game. This is the last boss to
Yes.
defeat. So that was kind of the way that I felt. And
Very
yeah, I mean,
smart. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, moving to LA, I used to say moving to LA was the second best thing I ever did for my musical career. And then that naturally begs the question, what was the first? And I would say, well, the first was going to Berklee. But I realized that both had to happen,
Yeah.
right? Had I only gone to Berklee, and not moved to LA, I question whether or not I would have been as fortunate as I've been. That said, had I immediately moved to LA right after high school without the skills I gained from Berklee, I doubt that I would be able to say, be able to do what I've done today. So I think those things are tied for first. Moving to Berklee, moving to LA and going to Berklee are tied for the best thing that I ever did to advance my musical career.
That's brilliant. That's great, man. That's so spot on. Yeah. And I totally get it. By the way, Chris Trujillo says long time brother. Yeah.
That's right. And speaking of having just moved to LA, so one of my favorite gigs that I ever did was with a young man named Tommy Henriksen.
Hey, Chris.
Um, and Chris Trujillo was our percussionist on that gig. And so Chris, I'm gonna recount two Tommy Henderson stories. And I hope that Chris is still on. I hope that he hears this, because if he is, he will verify both of these things. One is about myself, one is about him. So we're in a rehearsal at one point with Tommy, and our guitar player is a guitar player named Joey Sykes. And Joey Sykes is from Long Island. And so is Tommy. Tommy's from Long Island as well. And so at one point, I tried to play some, I went to music school, look at me, lick, and Joey stops the song. Joey stops the song. And he looks at me and he goes, "Hey man, lose the weckle." So that was one. Lose the weckle. Hey man, lose the weckle.
Lose the weckle.
So that was one. And then the other one, that was such a fun gig. Chris may already know where I'm going with this other one. The other one was we're doing some rehearsal, and Tommy was really cool, and he had sort of like Peter Gabriel-esque, aspirations in terms of what he wanted the band to look like and sound like and so on. And so at one point we're playing a song, and he says to Chris, he goes, "Yeah, man, this is just programmed on this part, but play some of that bongo shit." We all just looked at him and we were like, "Bongo shit."
Play some of that bongo shit.
Bongo shit. Play some of that bongo shit. Oh my God. That was one of the most fun gigs ever. And it was literally this. It was literally us screaming and laughing like 90% of the gig. Just, so
Those are the best
anyway,
gigs.
yes.
Well, next time I see Chris, I'm going to say to him, "Hey, Chris, play some of that bongo shit."
Some of that bongo shit.
Oh, he's a bad dude, that Chris Trujillo. So I'm sure.
Oh
it was,
yeah.
it was a happening band.
Oh yeah, it was. That was Chris. So that was Tommy, Joey Sykes, who has gone on to do many other things here in LA. Chris, Joey, Tommy, myself, and our keyboard player Vince. So yeah, we unfortunately for us all, actually, that record had a little bit of a shortened lifespan, but it was definitely an amazing trip while it lasted.
That's awesome, man. And so when you get out to LA late 90s, and how long after you got there were you? I'm sure you were playing with people like instantly, one way or another.
I would not use the term instantly. There was definitely a period where I was, floating, So the first things that I did, as I mentioned, I think earlier, is, you call everybody. You get on the line and you call everybody. And it's interesting too, one of my reflecting back, I've not reflected back on this stuff like this. A lot of the time when I get to chat with folks, they ask me about the show, and they ask me, what's it like working with, Lana Scott, who's one of our, current contestants, or whatever it may be. Yeah. But I don't often reflect back, or they ask me about my upbringing. They ask me about like the kids stuff, right? When did you start? Where did you grow up? Who were your favorites then? And then it skips to this, to where I am now. But it's interesting thinking back on the period right when I moved to LA. So I would get a lot of calls before moving to LA where it's like, "Oh man, I wish you were here, because if you were here, man, I just got called they wanted a drummer for so-and-so." And I'm like, "Oh, wow, dang, I wish I was there." Yeah. And then when you move here, it's like crickets. It's like, where are all those alleged gigs that you wish I was here for? Now I can't find one. And so my takeaway from that was that ultimately it's great to have people who you call and who you reach out to and who you network with and so on. But my takeaway from that experience was ultimately it's going to be on you. It's going to be on you to do the footwork and get in line behind everyone else who's been here before you and find your own way. And the idea of moving here, at least in my personal experience, the idea of moving here expecting someone's going to immediately call you, "Oh man, I'm so glad you're here. Hey, I'm on the way to rehearsal with this guy. Hop in the car. We need a drummer."
Yeah, exactly.
That was not my testimony, as it were. So I moved here. This is great. I moved here. One of the earliest gigs that I did was I was a TA, a teacher's assistant at MI. And if you're a teacher's assistant at MI on drums, for example, what that looks like is, yourself and probably a bass player. and you are the rhythm section for the guitar player who's the instructor, and that guitar player shows the 20 students, oh, funk exercise 103 in the workbook. Okay, that instructor plays it, you then play it with the instructor, and then you cycle through those students and they get up and they take their turn playing it with you, the rhythm section, and the instructor gives their feedback. So I was doing that gig, and I won't get too crazy about specifics. I will simply say this. This is not an exaggeration. I would have made more money hourly working at In-N-Out. I would have made more money hourly. The hourly wage was less than if I were working at In-N-Out. Okay. Now, couple that with this. So there were times when and MI still doesn't have parking. Like it's a good institution. You know what I'm saying? You can go,
Sure.
but they don't have parking. So I'm a TA. I drive in from the Valley to Hollyweird to go TA at MI. Let's say I'm working for 4 hours, right? I'm doing two 2-hour classes. I'm doing two 2-hour classes with a 2-hour break in the middle. So I drive in, I'm there for 6 hours. I only work for 4. So I make, I'll tell you, I make less than $40. Oh, but by the way, while I'm there, I get a parking ticket, $60.
Oh my gosh.
So I actually lose money to go in and work. So, but that comprised, part of what I was doing when I first moved here. I would play gigs. I worked with a guy who lived in San Bernardino, which for anyone who doesn't live here and doesn't know where that is in proximity, San Bernardino is it's a little over an hour, out to San Bernardino from the Valley where I was living at the time. And he would book gigs even further away than that, like on the other side of San Bernardino, from east, exactly. So here's me, and I'm driving like hour and 40 minutes out to do gigs where I'm playing like dinner jazz for $45, right? But in my head, part of me is going, why am I driving all the way out here and doing this gig for $45? What's going on here? But then the other part of me was like, I'm a working musician and I live in LA.
Yeah.
I live in LA and I'm a working musician. I get to look at my calendar and I see dates on my calendar. This day at this restaurant, this day at this restaurant. So those are my first gigs. So back to your point of, was I gigging immediately? No, I wasn't. I was sort of piecing together little things like that. And, church gigs tend to have high turnover in LA, especially because many of the musicians are professional musicians. So they're there while they're in town, but then a tour calls and then they go away. So there's a fair amount of turnover. So I was getting some church gigs. I was getting some calls to do some church gigs and some things of that nature. And through your friend and mine, Kirsten Matt then, now Kirsten Jensen, she recommended me, as I mentioned before, to Barry. And Barry called me for an audition. I think he also heard my name from somewhere else. And that was after I feel like I've been here for maybe 3 months at that point, 2 to 3 months. But for the first 3 months, it was definitely I would get the LA Weekly and I would immediately flip. The LA Weekly, for anyone not local, is sort of LA at the time anyway, was one of LA's sort of local music rags, right? So I would get it. I would immediately flip to the back to the classifieds, drummer wanted, make the list of numbers to call. And so, that was what comprised my existence when I first moved here.
But you know what, Nate? I mean, I'm 3 months though. I only asked that question because I think that's pretty incredible still though, that a lot of guys, I'm sure some that are out there for years that probably,
True. And when I say it out loud, it does sound like a short time span. I realize that. But I remember at the time though, I remember that stretch where, what am I going to do? And my mom, God bless her. Well, Nathaniel, how long are you going to, my mom is from the South. And so this is my bad Southern accent, my horrible, don't let my mom see this horrible impersonation of her. But, Nathaniel, how long are you going to struggle before you, give up and move back? And I would say, as long as it takes. As long as it takes. And again, anything that I say, so when I teach, Johnny, I basically start all of my lessons or all of my relationships with students with the caveat, this is what I did, right? In other words, this is what I learned. This is how I approached it. This is what I did. And then it's up to that person how much of that they want to use or not. So file under the this is what I did, I had no alternative plan. I had
Yeah.
no other plan. There wasn't, as guys say, there was no plan B. Um, and I don't necessarily believe like, well, if you have a plan B, then you're gonna fail. I don't necessarily believe that, but I definitely know I was gonna give it my, my damnedest. And I didn't really have an alternative. I have a buddy named Tom. He's a bass player, and he would say to me, and we both were at Berkeley at the same time. He lives out here now, gigging, professional musician, and he would say to me occasionally, he would go, Nate, if you ever question, whether or not you've made the right decision in life to be a professional musician, whether or not you've made the right choice, you can always take comfort in knowing pretty much there's no turning back at this point.
Right.
Pretty much, you have no other marketable skills. So pretty much that's kind of, and it's funny, it's kind of liberating, when you realize you don't have a choice. You go, okay, here we go.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, I think you do, but I'd say most don't. But
Yeah, well,
he's right. You're right.
yeah.
You get to a point where like, it's probably too late to go to law school or med school.
Right.
Or...
that's funny too. That's kind of how I mark my age in my head. Like there was a time period in my life. There was a time period I could have been a professional tennis player. Like if I decided at 7, or there was a time period where, like you said, I could have gone to law school, or I could have.
Yeah.
It was funny, man. I was watching something the other day. I'm a big basketball fan, and for anyone who doesn't know, Giannis Antetokounmpo is the center for the Milwaukee Bucks, the NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks, and he just turned 27 the other day. 27. 27. I was like, wow. It reminded me of the time I was at a UCLA basketball game, and I'm walking along like the baseline, and the game is going on. It's college, so it's not a big stadium. It's college, and I'm walking along the baseline, and a player going for a ball bumps into me, and they didn't knock me down or anything, but they bump into me, and as he turns to run back onto the, I can see him in my head. He was an NBA journeyman for a long time. I think he's only recently retired. I can't call his name now. It'll come to me later tonight. Anyway, as he turned to run back onto the court, he said, "Oh, sorry, sir," and then ran back onto the court. Like, oh man, this kid's like 6'10",
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, sir. I'm like, oh my God, because he would have probably been like 18 years old, 19 years old at the time. So sorry, sir. But that's how I mark it, by things I'll never be able to do anymore.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure I ask you this the right way, because without taking anything away from the amazing skills that you have as a musician, as the great drummer that you are, and I mean this too. But how much? No, and I think for people watching, like, how much would you attribute being a good guy to helping you succeed? Like, I mean, you have to have the chops, you have to have the skills to back it up, obviously, to be able to sit down and cut the gig. But and I'm saying this because I think I know the answer, because I just feel like so many people like you have succeeded because you're just like, you're a good guy to be around. You're just a good guy. And there are a lot of great drummers, guitar players, musicians that audition for gigs. And again, I don't want it to sound like you got the gig because you're only a good guy. You know what I'm saying?
No, I know exactly what you're saying. And as I said before, I'm old and therefore have stories about everything. So I appreciate the fact, yes, I appreciate the fact that you said, when we met in Boston, you mentioned that I was, a nice kid and so on. That means a lot to me. And I will admit to you and to everyone watching, listening, that might not have always been the case. And here's what I mean. So early in my time at Berkeley, I had a buddy of mine, Jeff Gallegos, right? I'm a last name freak. I remember people's last names for some reason. Jeff Gallegos. So Jeff Gallegos he's a saxophonist, sax player. And so he called me for sessions periodically and so on. And he and I got along well and so on. But one day he pulled me aside and he goes, you're a really good player. And it was kind of like one of those, like, it was, how can I even put this? I don't even know how to put it. I'll just put it. It was kind of like he pulled me aside and he said, you're a really good player, but I just want to let you know, there's a lot of people who don't call you because you're so cocky. And I
Really?
was like, wow. And at the time, I, how can I put this? Like a parent tells you something and you're like, what you know, you old, you don't know. Or an older person tells you
Mhm.
something, you're like, no, you don't know, man. This is how it is. This is how the kids do it, man. I know I know what's up. If a peer pulls you aside and says something like that, especially someone that you consider yourself close to, then it's like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I should analyze this. So
Yeah.
from that day forward, it really made me pay much more attention to my interactions with people, you know, and because I didn't realize the things that I might have been doing that would have even come across that way, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
started to think more about it, and so then to flash all the way forward to the point of your question in terms of being a good guy and how much that affects your ability to work. I mean, absolutely, because especially, I mean, there might be situations where you can get away with it. I mean, maybe let's just say maybe you're like the shredder soloist, and so every now and then somebody just wants you on their record, let's say, to pop in and cut a shredding sax solo, let's say, and then that's all they have to deal with you. And they go, well,
Yeah.
this guy, man, he's kind of but he's really burning. Get him in
Yeah.
here. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
A lot of my work has been with, has been touring or has been with bands that are doing, an
Mhm.
extended amount of work together. And yeah, man, you don't want to be on a tour bus with someone whose attitude is foul or who's unpleasant to be around, because I have found out that I found out that yes, that your attitude and your disposition and how enjoyable it is to be around you or not factors into it big time. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. It's funny to me, and people told me that when I was younger, and I learned that when I was younger. But it's funny to me that it wouldn't have been automatic. It's funny to me that I wouldn't have just automatically realized that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you don't sometimes. And like I said, I think there's certain contexts. Maybe if you're the leader, you get more leeway and you can be a jerk because you're the lead. But even in that context, it's like
Yeah.
even if you're the
Yeah.
leader, your ability to interact with club owners or
Exactly.
bookers or
Yeah.
talent agents, all of that stuff. So yeah, I mean, your attitude and disposition definitely play into it. Absolutely.
And I I've heard that as well, Nate, from so many players, of your caliber and level that have said that it's even a guy like Steve Gadd has talked about how
Sure.
being able to hang, just being a good guy in the tour bus, exactly what you just said, exactly, almost word for word.
I
Like,
bumped into I bumped into my buddy Abe Labroyal Jr. the other day, and I whenever I think about Abe, I think about the very first, like the very first time Abe ever came on my radar would have been at Berkeley, right?
mm,
I'm the new guy. I'm like a freshman, and he would have been an outgoing senior. And I remember thinking to myself, and I've told this many times, I remember thinking to myself, first of all, I thought to myself, why is that freaking guy here? Because he's obviously a professional already. It would be like if you were like watching like rec league basketball and Giannis Antetokounmpo walks in. It's like, why is that guy here? What is going on? Why is
yeah,
that dude here? So I remember thinking that, but then my next sort of thought was like, I want to not like this guy because he's so good. Like I want to find something to not like about him, but like, damn it, he's also a super sweet guy. So I
yeah,
can't even be mad at him for that. So yes, being easy to be around and all of
yeah.
it is definitely a part of it. Definitely a part of it. And
No,
I
I,
love
I,
Abe, by the way. I
I
like
know.
he's
Yeah.
he's one of those dudes. Like he's one of those dudes. I mean, he's been playing with Paul McCartney now. He told me, I feel like he might have said, man, he might have said 20 years or something like that, like a long time. And of all the people in the world, if I could think like, who's the best guy to be on like this enormous gig of this caliber, stylistically, all of it, it's like him. It's
Yeah.
almost like
Absolutely. Yeah. He
it's so perfect.
he plays it so perfectly. I I don't know Abe well. I've met him a number of times, and
Mhm.
you're exactly right. He's just like the most humble,
He's the sweetest guy in the
most
world.
yeah, sweetest, sincere guy. Like,
Yeah.
and
And he comes
I've
from royalty. He comes from
yeah,
royalty. So by rights, he could be a jerk, but he's not. And by the way, his dad, senior,
yeah,
like apple tree.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. Yeah,
such a sweetheart, such a
yeah.
just a gentle, just kind spirit. Just I just
So much
can't.
soul.
It's
Yeah,
just too much.
just a
Just too
great,
much.
great
Yeah,
human. Yeah, absolutely. You know,
absolutely.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Well, and I wanted to mention that too for people watching, because I know that I think somebody you can uh, you are such a great example, but I think that you can impart so much wisdom onto younger players that are thinking of maybe moving to LA, or would it make maybe taking that next step in their playing career. And just think
Hmm.
you can't tell people that enough, how important it is to be able to just to be a good human and be able to work with the rest of the guys, having all the chops in the world. That's a great thing, or having all that ability. But
Hmm.
if you can't sort of get along with
You know,
people, you're only going to
and
get so far.
let me ask you this, Johnny. So my finding, it's a very rare drummer that I meet that's not a good guy. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
just our community of drummers, to me, I don't even know. There's something special about being a drummer. Like, I don't meet a lot of drummers who I'm like, oh, that guy's a jerk. The vast majority of drummers that I meet, I always say this. It's like whenever you're on tour and the bus can't leave because there's like some, like how frequently does it happen that everybody's on the bus and they're waiting for the drummer who is surrounded by two or three other drummers showing them something? Oh man, no, that pattern, it's this or it's that, or oh, that symbol, oh, it's a 14 inch this or it's that. And it's like, will you get on the? Can we go? Can we go? And the drummer's out there explaining some lick or something, and that's just our nature. Like I don't see that with regard to guitar players. I don't see guitar players constantly going like, "Oh man, let me show you this." Now, I need to add that in our band, it's an exception because we have a handful of guitar players, and there are three to be exact that sort of rotate depending on availability, and they are all three like the most humble, egoless
yeah, yeah,
cats. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So they're out there. They're out there. But I
Sure.
just mean
Yep.
as a community, drummers, I mean, am I wrong? Are there
No,
guitarists
you're absolutely right.
like
And yeah, I don't
clinics?
mean, yeah, you're right. I couldn't, I really, people ask me to this day, even though I'm long gone from Zilch, they go like, who are some of the harder guys to work with? And it's like, if I really thought about it, I could maybe come up with something, but
Right.
in my mind, there's so few, if there are even any, that, like as you say, the vast majority are just regular, good, down to earth people.
I want to explore, Johnny, because I am really just kind of going off the top of my head right now. But like, I'm just thinking about the various pages and or various players rather, and like Todd Zuckerman pops to mind. Like
Yeah,
Todd is nonstop putting cool stuff out and going like, check this out, and here's this cool thing, and here's that cool thing, and doing his master classes and just all of it. And I see that a bunch. I'm gonna investigate. I'm gonna see if I can find like what other musicians do that, what other communities do that.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
because I always like, because I'm so inside of drumming, so I just assume that my drumming outlook is what it is. But maybe I'll go, maybe I'll get like a burner account now, like start a thing, and I'll go and like try to like join like guitar, like guitar. So I just did. Shut up! I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. I just did an event in Phoenix, and it was sponsored in part by the Phoenix area drummers community. So
Mm,
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna see. Maybe is there like a Phoenix area guitarist community? Is there a
yeah.
Denver area guitarist community? Maybe there is.
There
There
probably
probably
is,
is.
there
There probably
probably
is.
is.
I'm gonna go research. I'm gonna go
Hey,
research.
speaking of great guys, I just have to say,
Yeah.
Danny Gottlieb is watching right now. And speaking of great guys, I've known Danny 40 plus years. I mean, like when he was playing with Pat Metheny in
Right.
1979,
Right. Right.
1980,
Right.
when I was working at Wurlitzer in Boston, and all, he was
Wow.
in arguably
Wurlitzer.
like the most popular, fusion band at, one of the most, influential bands of that time. And he was like the nicest, and he still is. So Danny, I'm shouting out to you. Um, he says hello, by the way. Um,
Excellent. Hello. Hello. I
but
don't think
yeah,
I've ever had the pleasure of meeting Danny Gottlieb.
super nice guy, super duper. Just
Nice.
a, yeah, down
That's
to earth.
awesome. That's
So all
awesome.
right, well, so I'm going to jump a little ahead. And, you know, when you mentioned earlier about, I sort of, I didn't get into like when you started playing drums and all that stuff. Cause I think a lot of that stuff is out there.
Yeah,
You know
I
what I
mean,
mean? A lot of that.
you can. I can give you the quick Cliffs notes if you want to.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
You know, sure. You know, I started playing when I was about, I mean, I don't know, it's probably 4 or 5 or something.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
at that point, my two biggest influences were my parents went to Tennessee State University, which is a historically Black college university, and so they had one of those like marching bands, you know, like the jamming marching bands, right? So that was the one thing I would go. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. There was yeah. So they would
Yep.
go to the football games, and literally the score of the football game when you're at an HBCU, like the score of the football game is irrelevant. What happens at halftime? That's the actual competition,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
Is your
Yeah.
band better than the Southern or you know, Bethune Cookman or Howard or Florida A&M, right? Like it's like or Tennessee State University. Like you want to see whose band, you know, burns who. So that was a big influence. And then the other big influence at that age and that time was Animal from the Muppet Show. And so I don't mean to sound like a cliche, but I
Yeah.
mean I
Yeah.
was like a little kid. Like I didn't know from puppets. Like to me, I'm watching Animal and he's as real as anything, right? And he's playing drums and going ah and playing. And I was
Tore it
like,
up.
I want to
Yeah.
do that. I want to do that. So that was the very beginning. And so I'll kind of fast forward a little bit, but the long story short of it is, and everybody out there just collectively went too late. But the long story long of it is, I was influenced by my dad, who was listening to music all the time, mostly jazz, and then he would also buy music for me, which spanned, you know, the gamut. I remember he bought me, you know, like a Kiss record and a Peter Frampton record and a George
Wow.
Clinton Funkadelic record and Michael
Yeah.
Jackson, and so that was the beginning, and it just kind of it just kept branching out in terms of influences. And the thing that's a little bit unique is that a lot of people's timeline is like, oh, I remember when I used to like that band, or when I
Hmm.
used to listen to this, or I used to do that. Whereas for me, like I said, it's just branched out. It's just gone like this. Like every time I've added something, nothing else has gone away. So it's interesting because I took that. I'm kind of, again, I'm fast forwarding, Johnny. So jump in
No,
if
this
I
is
skip
great.
something.
And it makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
Yeah, I just always added. So when I was in high school, I played in a band called Akamili, and Akamili, we were influenced by Bow Wow Wow and Fugazi, also from the same sort of Baltimore area. And so we were like this like wannabe like I don't know punk band sort of thing. But then I was also listening to like Miles Davis and Chick Corea, right?
Yeah.
So so that went all the way through college, and then when I was in college, I was listening again, still all the rock stuff, and then Nirvana came on the map, and then I was listening to all that, but then I was also listening to a bunch of jazz and fusion, and in my instruction at Berkeley, in my education, I knew like, okay, I love Latin drumming. Who's the guy? And so for my first 2 semesters, I studied with rest in peace Ed Uribe.
And you're right.
So I went
Yeah.
two semesters with Ed. Then I was like, okay, now I want to get my straight ahead chops together. Who's that guy? And so then for the next 2 semesters, I studied with John Ramsey, right, who went on to become the chair of the department, who I'm still in touch with, whom I love dearly, right?
Great guy.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I just always added. And then getting back to earlier what I had mentioned about the gigs I was doing before moving to LA, you know, I was playing in a calypso thing, and I was doing a jazz thing, and I was doing a rock thing. And so fast forward all of that to present day, and what I tell people is this, you know, if you had asked me in college like what's your dream gig, I would have said like Peter Gabriel or Sting or Phil Collins or Madonna or Janet, whatever the current big arena tour was, right? But in reality, it was The Voice. I've been preparing for this gig my whole life because I've been doing, you know, unknowingly just bouncing around, you know,
Yeah.
genre bouncing, if you will, for 40 years, you know, 40 plus years. And so this gig didn't exist when I was in college. So
Right.
I couldn't have said this gig when I was in college. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of the whole, that's the condensed, you know, the
That's
Cliffs Notes,
that's
if you
that's a
will.
perfect answer too. You're right, because it's stylistically it's everything. It's like it's a it's a, you know, like it's all those things, all
My heroes were the
everything
guys who
you
could
can.
do. Yeah, my heroes were, you know, or at least I'll say two of my big heroes. You mentioned them earlier. One of them, Omar Hakim, and then another, and this is not, you know, I'm not unique in this, but another was Vinnie Colaiuta. And for me, my attraction, I have different reasons for liking both, but one of the threads was that, you know, Vinny did things or does things that, I mean, like it's magic. Like I don't even know like what's going on. Like he starts at my highest level of comprehension and then goes past that, and then I'm like, I don't know, pick me up on your way back. You know what I mean? Just drop me here. Pick me. I'll wait here on this park bench. Pick me up on the way back. Okay. That's it. But it's like the thing that is the most captivating to me about him is I felt like at the time in college, and I still feel this way. He can do anything. Like there's nothing he can't do. And I
I
don't
know.
mean
Yeah.
chops. I mean genre. You could drop
Right.
him in the middle of a klezmer band, in the middle of a bluegrass band, in the middle of a metal band, in the middle of whatever you want, and he could do it. And so that was always something that I aspired to. So I am literally, and I don't say this flippantly, but literally, I realize I am a jack of some trades and master of none. I'm not trying to be Horacio. Like I know that that's not my calling, but I want to know enough about the music that if something comes up that lives in that world, I sound like I've heard it before.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be
Great.
accused of being a gospel drummer ever, right? But I want to know a thing or two that hints that I've heard that music before. And so country, same thing, you know.
Yeah.
Big
Yeah.
band, jazz, same thing. So you know, Adam Nussbaum is not looking over his shoulder, you know, for me coming up behind. Peter Erskine, you know what I mean? Peter Erskine is not looking. Jeff Hamilton is not concerned about me coming and taking any of his gigs, right? But I want to know how to kind of bing, bing, a ding, bing, a ding, bing, a ding, like I've heard it before. So.
Oh, that's great, man. That's another.
Jeff
No,
Hamilton, I'm coming for you.
yeah, exactly.
I'm really not.
Hammer.
I'm really not.
No, again, more great wisdom to impart. I think it's great. I have to tell you a quick, funny John Ramsey story.
Please.
I hope you think it's funny. This is maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Mhm.
My band's playing at this local club up in Woburn, Mass. That we play at. This place called the Brickyard, and it's a restaurant upstairs and a bar downstairs. And it's Saturday night, and we're playing. And it was somebody's birthday in the audience, so we get a request to do the Beatles' birthday. So we're just doing the little da na 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 da da, and you know we're just having fun with it. And this person comes walking by in front of my drums. It's a really at that time we were playing to this really short wall, so there's really not a lot of space between the audience and where the band is.
Mhm.
And this guy comes walking down along, you know, the sort of pathway and stops right in front of my drums and sticks his face out right into my face. And it's John Ramsey. It's Ramsey. And you know that face he makes, he goes like, and I'm like, and I'm playing going like, it's John Ramsey. Oh my God. The sticks like wanted to fly out of my hands, you know. And so we finished the tune and I chatted with him for a few minutes. He was so kind. He was like, you sound great, man. You sound great. I'm like, oh my God, John. And I tell the guys in the band, I said, this guy is the chair of Berklee College. He is like, not only is he like a monster drummer, but you know, an authority on Art Blakey, like you name it. He's like, he runs Berklee and he's at the gig.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah. Now, how did he come to be there? Does he live in that area?
He lives in the next town over in Lexington, and was having dinner upstairs. And I guess he said he heard the band, thought he'd come down and just check it out. And
that's funny.
Yeah, so
That's
it was
funny.
just.
I talked to John the last time I was in Boston, and I basically that's a great story. This is not nearly that good of a story, but basically, no, it's really not. But Boston, I don't have to tell you, friggin' just demoralizing winters. Just like soul hurting winters. Yes. And so I saw John at one point and I made that remark. I said, man, you know, Boston's amazing, but it's just so friggin' the winters are just so brutal. And he goes, yep. He goes, you know, I told myself, this is the last one. That was 40 years ago. Whatever it was. Every year he says, this is the last one.
the last
And he's
one.
been there for decades now. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
yes. Those
great.
are some good times, man. I had some
Yeah.
great times. I remember, like I remember looking in the cushions of a couch, not unlike this one, hoping to find change to equal what was then $1 to go and get a slice of pizza at Supreme's Pizza and Subs. It was
Of
$1 for a
course.
slice when
Yeah.
I was in college there. Now I'm sure it's much, much more. But yeah, man, those are some memories. Whew.
That's so
Yeah,
great.
good
But
times. Sorry, I'm
so
sure I'm taking you so far afield from what
no,
what you
man,
want
no,
to talk
we're
about.
just like I told you, there's no format or agenda. We're just hanging, we're catching up. I'm just gonna tell you, Danny Gottlieb, I wanted you to, you'll see this if you look at this archive later, but he said,
Yes.
we haven't met, but I'm a fan. And he's
Uh,
a big fan of yours.
well,
I mean, everybody's a fan of
same,
yours.
same,
Yeah.
same to Danny. Yeah, man. Now, okay, so let's see. So you were recalling how we met. So I will share this. I posted this in the post that I put on my little Facebook to say that, hey, I was going to get to chat to you today, and I refer to you as the Don. And the reason why, like, so what you need to understand is this. At the time when I'm at school, it was like you were. I'm bear with me, man. But it was like Lenny DiMuzio was kind of moving away,
Yeah.
and you were like on your ascension. You were literally Michael Corleone. You were literally like coming up like in the family, right? And then at one point, because I remember. And so then at one point, you were the big cheese. You were like the dime. You had taken over. You were running the family. And so that's why you will always be the Don to me. And it was like I had to pay your respects, pay your and I did. It's the truth. And so that's just always in my head. I've always
Oh,
thought of you as like the Don. And it's like, if you want to accomplish anything in this industry, it goes through Johnny DeChristopher. Like,
oh,
like
man.
John DeChristopher has to approve of it. You want to build an addition on your house? John's got to approve it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the way it felt to me. So yes, I say that
Oh,
with
man.
the utmost respect. With
Thank
the
you.
utmost
Thank
respect.
you.
And so it's very I don't even know what the word is, but it's really funny. I've been doing this long enough now that it's been really fun to enjoy changes in the complexion of my relationships with people. Like, in other words, it's amazing to me that once upon a time I was like, oh my God, like John and Christopher, oh my God. And now like we're buds and I can like talk to you and just hang out and rap. Like,
Absolutely.
it's amazing. And like I said, it's just really funny. I've been very, very fortunate. My all-time favorite band is Fishbone, right?
I love that.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's all-time fave. Fishbone, 24/7 Spies, Rage Against the Machine. All day, every day. But it's just funny to me, like, to have bumped in, since living in Los Angeles, to have bumped into, Philip Fisher, the drummer from Fishbone. And now like he texts me and says like, oh, happy Father's Day or whatever.
Oh,
Like,
man. Yeah.
what? Really? Huh? What? I'm getting what? Like, I was worshiping your drum tracks when I was in high school, and now you're texting me like happy birthday. And it's like, so I've been very fortunate, very blessed
That's great.
to have had some really cool experiences. And this is, very high among them, is
Well,
getting to hang out with the
and
Don.
and
So
likewise, thank you. And shout out to Fish too. He's I mean, incredible drummer and a
yes,
great human. I haven't seen him in a
yes.
while, but I see him occasionally on Facebook and used to see him all the time out in LA at the NAMM show and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just
No, I would go when I lived on the East Coast. If Fishbone was performing within 100-mile radius of me, I was there. You know what I'm saying? I would
yeah.
go see them. How if I had to drive, an hour and a half to get there, I would go see them. And it's funny because sometimes now I listen back to those records. I still listen to those records, and I listen to them, and there are a few records like this, not just Fishbone, but other artists as well, where I'll hear it and I'll be like, oh, that's right, that's where I stole that from. Like, I'll hear it, I'll be like, that's right. So another one. Do you happen to know? He goes by Wolf now, but he's a drummer turned
Oh,
producer named
Stephen
Stephen
Wolf.
Wolf. You know Steve Wolf?
Oh,
You know Steve Wolf?
absolutely. Yes.
Right. So
Yeah.
he's on a Hiram Bullock record called Way Cool that I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
And I was really big into that record. And so that's another one. Sometimes I listen back to that record and I'll hear him play some lick and I go like, oh, that's right. That's the first time I heard that.
He's a monster player, and another great guy. And he was, I think, a couple of years ahead of you at Berkeley, because I think when I started at
Yep,
Zildjian in '89, I think he just got the gig with Hiram Bullock, I think, at that point.
that makes sense.
And
That makes sense. I was at Berkeley. I, I have to when I go down this path because inevitably I forget someone, but like I was at Berkeley during an incredibly fertile drumming
I was going to ask you
period.
that. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some
Johnny
of the
Rad,
first
right?
Johnny Rab, Lil John Roberts, who's now a professor there at Berkeley, Abe, who I mentioned earlier. There was a really good jazz drummer there when I was there named Adonis. I think his name was Adonis. I want to say Adonis Long, but he was there. Steve Haas was there when I was there. I remember Steve. I don't know why my brain holds on to certain encounters that I have with people. I remember standing with Steve, and I never saw Steve. Not anyone who knows, by the way, Steve Haas will totally like appreciate what I'm about to say, which is that I don't ever remember seeing him without a stick in one hand and a drum pad in the other. Like just you know, well, I'm doing it reverse. I'm playing like backwards traditional, but yeah, he'd be, you know, playing, you know, do a lot of stuff all the time. And so I remember standing with him. In the hotel lobby. I almost said, who's been on tour too much? The hotel lobby. I remember standing with him in the like the student center lobby, and we were just chatting, and I was like, Steve, and I smelled. So I don't remember what it was. I was like burnt food. I couldn't tell what it was. But I was like, Steve, do you what's that smell? And he goes, oh, I smell like this all the time. Oh man, and yeah, man. I mean, yeah, I mean, there are more drummers. Like I said, I hate to start down the path because invariably they're freaking wow. I can picture him. He's a teacher now at the wow. It's basically Drummers Collective. He's a teacher at Collective.
I don't know what just happened to my. Sorry.
Free Lobster.
Sometimes my iHeartRadio just kicks on out of nowhere. It's weird. My app.
Yep.
I think was Antonio Sanchez there during that time?
Yes, Antonio was there. Yes.
And
yes,
Jules
he was
Thomas,
another one.
right?
Yes, Jules. Antonio was another one, by the way, that I looked at kind of like, why are you here? Because he was already like super accomplished, you know. Marco Djordjevic. That's what I was trying to think of earlier.
Marco,
yeah. Marco, right. The thing that I remember most about Marco is there was like a row along the mailboxes where there was like a little raised part of a little walkway in the building. And drummers would just basically bring their throne and sticks and would all just practice on little things like drummers row by the mailboxes. And I remember I would see Marco there all the time. And he was doing something that is maybe the greatest degree of discipline that I've ever seen, which is he would be playing everything as quiet as he possibly could. So he's working on, like everybody's working on a single, you know, and like most people, the faster you accelerate toward the faster you can do it, the more out of control you're doing that. He's there going like super quiet, doubles, parallels, like super quiet, working on these things. And I just remember being like, wow, that's some discipline. I have another, by the way, Marco memory. But I remember him saying, because I asked him, and he was like, well, you know, I mean, a lot of drummers, myself included, many of us, when we've got to play in a quieter environment, like 3/4 of our stuff goes out the window because we can't do it quiet. And I'm speaking for myself, right? Sure. I'm speaking personally. Like, you know, if I'm got to play super quiet, a lot of stuff I can't play. One time I was in a clinic with Marco, an instructor had come, rather a clinician had come, and who was it? I can't remember who the clinician was, but at one point he was talking about developing your single stroke speed. And he asked the question, how many in the room are happy with their single strokes? You know, and Marco raised his hand, and he was the only one. I'm good. And it's funny because there was like this collective, you know, like Berkeley, we're all there. Like I was cocky because like we're all there basically watching, like, show me something. Like anyone who came there, a clinician, whatever it was, show me something, impress me. And then,
Yeah.
show me that I have a reason to care what you're going to say. And so there was a collective, like in the room, like collectively, everybody in the room was like, oh, please ask Marco to come up and play. Please ask Marco to come play. Please ask Marco up on stage, because we knew like he's like, we're going to kill people. So yeah, but yeah, that's what I remember about Marco. I remember
That's
him
great.
practicing super, super quiet, and me just being in awe of the amount of discipline that takes. And then yes, him having absolutely incredible technique and facility.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really incredible drummer. Yeah. So all right, so I'm gonna jump ahead to.
Please.
I want to say before The Voice, you were doing another show,
Mhm.
Rockstar INXS.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what. Yeah, and that was like the early 2000s or ish.
That was 2005, 2006 on CBS.
Okay.
We did 2 seasons. The first season was 05, and it was Rockstar INXS, and it was. I mean, the show itself was amazing,
Yeah.
and one of the remarkable things about it was that literally, if you were to just be like channel surfing and come across it, it just looked like a live concert. Like
Right.
the band was on stage, the contestant or the singer, the artist was running around like hooping it up like they were in a rock club. And that was an outstanding show. Unfortunately, it didn't have legs, and we kind of say, it was ahead of its time. We kind of feel like if it were on, now it might have, been on for a greater length of time. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was in fact, was that my first? I think that was my first television opportunity.
That's what I thought. I was going to ask you that, Nick, because that's what I remembered at the time was like,
Yeah.
you'd landed this incredible gig. And in my mind, you hadn't been out there that long. That's why I was sort of leading up to all this. How long had you been there? Because if that was 2005, you'd been there about maybe 5 or so years,
5, 6 years,
5 or 6 years, but still incredible to land a TV gig, which was Mark Burnett also. It was a producer. So is it safe to say that's what gave you the sort of, foothold to then get The Voice call, or was that?
So you just reversed into a question that is interesting, because so you asked the question, is that what gave me a foothold to lead towards The Voice? And you don't even realize the profundity of the question that you've asked, and I'm going to tell you why.
All right,
buckle up, kids.
I'm known for
need a refill. Does anybody need a? What do you say?
I'm known for my profundity.
Yeah, I love that word. Profundity is such a fun word. It's a fun word to say. But if anybody needs to go get like some snacks, or anybody needs like a refill, or anything like that, I can wait. I'll give you a minute. Go grab something, because I have another long story coming. So I'll let you go grab something, maybe a bowl of cereal or something. Okay, so here's the thing. Wait, I got to see what time it is, guys. I do have to do a show. Let me see. Oh, it's 2:14. I got tons of time. I got all the time in the world. I have all the time in the world. Okay. So, right. Rockstar. So the question that you sort of backed into is, how did you land the gig on The Voice? And it's an excellent question. And it's a question that I am frequently asked, probably the most common question, because it's the most common question that I would have asked anyone on any gig, especially when I was aspiring, to do those kinds of gigs. How did you get that gig? I want to know. What do I do? So this is a very long story, but I'll bring it in for a landing as quickly as I can. Very long story short, so remember I told you the story about Billy Myers, and I went and I did the audition on Wednesday, and Thursday was a callback, and Friday night we did a TV show like that. The audition for Rockstar went something like this. I get a call from a buddy named Derek Frank. He says, Mark Burnett is putting together a TV show. He's called a bunch of MDs to put together bands to bring an audition for this TV show. Would you be interested in being in the band that I'm going to put together? I, of course, said yes. That would have been the beginning of 2005. We audition. They mix and match different players in different configurations. And after about a week-long process, like a week to a week and a half long process of callbacks and so on and so forth, there was a guy who I thought was the odds-on favorite. And so at one point I called the person running the audition and I said, hey, is there really a need for me to keep coming back? Because I feel like you're going to go with this other particular guy. He said, yes, there's a need for you to keep coming back. I said, okay, fine. We go. And it was, again, kind of like the Billy thing where at the end of a certain day, I'm looking around and there's no other drummers left. And it's just me. So I say to the person who's one of the producers on the show, his name is Clyde Lieberman, whom I love. He's like my big brother. So I say to Clyde, and this is the beginning of my relationship with Clyde. By the way, Clyde works on The Voice. So we're talking, beginning of '05, I would have met Clyde. So at this point, we're going into now, over a decade and a half long relationship. So I say to Clyde, I go, and nobody said, unlike the Billy thing, nobody said like, you got the gig.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of looking around and they're like, okay, guys, we're done for the night. And I'm like, again, looking around. And I go up to Clyde and I go, so Clyde, there's no other drummers here. I said, can I go home and have a celebratory drink? Like, in other words, did I get the gig? And Clyde's answer, I'll remember like it happened yesterday. He said, well, you should definitely go home and have a drink. No, he didn't say celebratory necessarily.
Yeah.
He said definitely go home and have a drink. So I said, okay. Well, the band that they put together at that point was Paul Merkovich as musical director, a guy named Jim McGorman as like a utility guy. He played keys and guitar and sang. Sasha Krivtsov on bass.
Yeah.
Hafa Moriera on guitar, myself on drums. So I feel like I'm forgetting someone. No, I guess that was it. Yeah, Paul, Jim, Sasha, Hafa, myself. Right. So over the course of literally the next several months, they swapped in and out people. At one point, the network said, what if we had a female guitarist? Let's get this person. They were in the band for a little while. Okay, that's not going to work out. What if we had this person on bass? Okay, that's not going to work out. And all the while, we're doing these little gigs. There's a point to this, I swear. I told you it was a long story.
Yeah, no.
If you didn't go and get a refill, then you're SOL, too late now. All the while, we're doing these performances. We're doing these gigs. We're rehearsing, we're learning a set of music, and we're doing these gigs. And the gigs that we're doing are, for example, the CBS executives, because they've got to see what the thing looks like to sign off on it. We're playing for INXS, the band, because they got to see like, okay, who's this band going to be on this show that we're, producing? We play for Mark Burnett and that whole, boardroom. And so there are several of these. We play for the music publishers who hold the rights to all the music that we're going to be wanting to play, because they're like, well, who's going to be playing this music that we're going to be letting you guys do? That process lasts, and I kid you not, 5 months.
Wow.
It was
okay.
So the first audition I did was the first week of the year. It was like January 6th. It was May 19th or something like that when the executive producer called the band in and said, okay, you guys are the band. If you're interested, you got the gig. So it was a 5-month process.
Wow.
Okay. Yes, it was a 5-month process. It was the longest audition process I've ever experienced in my life. That was the first time that I played in a band with Paul Merkovich as my musical director, who was my musical director on The Voice, and with Sasha Krivtsov, my bass player, who was the bass player then and who was the bass player on The Voice. From that point, we did Rockstar 2 seasons. We did a lot of sessions in town as a trio, as a rhythm section. We toured with Paul Stanley as his part of his band. We played with Cher at Caesar's Palace for her residency. And then when Cher ended, we wound up on this gig, and that would have been 11 years ago at this point. We just did our this season a few weeks back was our 500th episode. So the reason, to circle all the way back to your question, which was, would you say that started gave you your foothold in terms of doing TV? It gave me my foothold in terms of meeting Paul Merkovich and him being responsible in great part for a lot of the gigs that I did following that, and us being able to continue to do that all the way to now. So what I mean when I say you sort of backed into the question is, that's the big answer. It wasn't necessarily that I did TV, therefore now I'm getting all these TV shows. It was that was the first time that unit came together, and that unit has gone on to do several things. And the reason why this is an important answer and why it's important to give the full context and the full breadth and scope of it is because I think a lot of the time we can get into this idea of, oh, I'll meet this one guy, then I'll be a star or whatever. Like, I'll meet this guy, I'll do this audition on Wednesday, Friday, drum companies and cymbal companies will be sending me stuff. And it wasn't that at all for me. It was very much a relationship in terms of the voice. In other
Yeah.
words, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like, hey, there's this TV show called The Voice that's auditioning, Nate, come down. And then, that was a Tuesday, and Thursday I got the gig. It was, I met Paul Merkovich in 2005, right? The beginning to the answer, how'd you land the gig on The Voice, is I met Paul Merkovich in 2005.
Yeah.
So it's relationships. And again, back to your
Yeah.
other point, which is like, had I been a jerk then that Paul didn't necessarily want to ever work with again, then am I sitting here now? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Right. If he was the guy that exactly, if he was the guy that could make the call, and yeah, I think it proves that point exactly. I mean, you without a doubt have the chops, you have everything it takes as a drummer and more. And it's a tough gig, and I want to talk about the gig itself too a little bit,
sure.
but yeah, but I agree. I think that's
There's two
I'm so
words.
glad you
There are
said that. Yeah.
two. There are two guiding. There are two. I won't call them guiding principles, but there are two sort of words that guide my life. And one of them is relationships, right? And that
Mhm.
one typifies or exemplifies why relationships are important. And the relationships also comes up a lot in the context of how do you get an endorsement. I'm sure you must have been asked this about 100,000 times. I'm sure you've been asked this. And for me,
I
my
still
answer is
do.
always relationships. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For me, my answer is always relationships. All of the companies that I'm with, for anyone who is interested in this sort of thing, all the companies that I'm with started, or at least I'll say, like the biggies, right? The big ones: Zildjian, Remo, Pearl, Roland. They all kind of started with, hey, I'm not really asking you for anything. I just think that what you make is the best at what you make, and I'm going to be playing it regardless. So just wanted to say hi. I'm Nate. Pretty much, right? That's the way it went, And I never hounded. I know that there are guys. I'm sure there are guys who probably hounded you every day. Like John. Hey man, this is Matt Siskin here, man. My band is playing so forth. Can I get a guitar? Right? Or there are guys who think like, my band got signed, I'm just going to call all these companies and trucks of stuff are going to show up at my house.
Yeah.
And again, as I said before, this is just how I experienced it. This is my testimony, is that was not at all the way it went for me. I literally called up Pearl. John King. I was moving to LA, and I called John King at the time, and I said, hey, I've got a couple of cracked cymbals. I'm moving to LA. Could I possibly come and replace these cracked cymbals before I move? Like, I'm moving like next week. And he said, sure. And I went down to Norwell, and I was in that room where all the cymbals are, where people are like drool, just salivating. Oh my gosh, I'm in this room. And John said, hey, while you're at it, why don't you, see if there's a ride you like, maybe a couple crashes. And I was like, I can't afford that. And he was like, no, like literally in my head, I'm thinking he's going to tell me what the price is. And so I picked a couple of things. I was like, okay, cool. And he said, if you're interested, we would like to make you an associate endorser, which I think kind of means like, we'll take your call and we'll exchange your cracks.
Yeah.
It was basically that. It wasn't call us and we'll back the truck up to your house. It was not that at all. And I think I got, a break that was at the time maybe slightly better than if I bought it at Guitar Center.
Yeah.
And I was stoked to have it. But my only point is, it wasn't born out of me calling and harassing. So
Never.
relationships. Oh, and the other word is balance.
Absolutely.
Which becomes increasingly a bigger deal, with, I got, 6 kids and this young lady that, that I call my wife, and at the same time, professional stuff and gigs and all of that. And so, I'm so long-winded, John, I'm so sorry, but
no, this is great.
I just feel like I have to tell these things. I have to give these things context so that they make sense. So I'm 26-7, and I'm working with Dale Bozio, and we're out here in LA. I still lived in Boston, but we're out here in LA working, and I've got a buddy of mine who's a drummer named Tony D'Agostine. And Tony is an outstanding drummer.
Yeah.
Do you know Tony by any chance?
I know Tony, sure, yep.
Yeah. Okay,
Great
so
drummer,
Tony's an
great guy.
outstanding drummer. Yes, super great guy, super great guy. But I say to Tony, Tony, what's the hardest thing? This is me in my mid late 20s. I say to Tony, and Tony's a little older than me, so he
Yeah.
had been down the path. He was in the middle of his his career, still is. And I said, what's the hardest thing about being a professional musician? And I'm thinking he's going to say chops, or he's going to say reading, or he's
Yeah.
going to say bad hotels. And he said balance, finding a balance. And I said, finding a balance between what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And he said, finding a balance
great
between
answer.
everything. He said, finding a balance between everything. And I was like, and I kind of went away from the conversation like, gee, thanks a lot. Like, that didn't help me at all. Like, that's not going to help me get a gig. Every next, year that I continue to be on the planet and doing this, I realize the profundity of that answer, because it is a balance. It's a balance between, being busy, but at the same time, spending time with your family. It's a balance between, having time off and enjoying your family versus being broke, because I'm not working right now. It's a balance between, taking gigs that you really love for the music versus the gig that pays more. It's all of it. It's all of it. Being home versus being gone, just everything. So those two words, it's all about balance and relationships.
That is so great. That's huge. That's huge right
Balance and
there.
relationships. Balance and
Yeah.
relationships.
And can I just say, I have to shout out right now, speaking about one of your companies,
Yes.
Jeff Kelly Shoe is watching,
Yeah.
says hello. And I love the Kelly Shoe system myself too. I have it in like almost all my drum sets. It's just life-changing for me. And anyway, he says hello, you too. I'm working a James Taylor Jackson Brown concert right now. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, I told him to tell Steve. I've been telling Steve Gadd about the Kelly Shoe for years. So hopefully Jeff will close the deal on him.
Well, what is I feel so silly even saying, so what does Steve do? I don't know him personally, so I
Steve,
feel funny saying that. But what is
he
he
typically will he'll typically vent his bass drum head, his front head, port it, I should say. And Mike put a mic inside.
Okay.
And I just love the sound I get with a closed front head, the Shoe system with a Shure Beta 52 and a little muffling inside.
Yep.
And you definitely get some boom, but it's such a great sound. It's such a great sound.
It's great. And I have them in basically all the kits on the show here as well, which I should touch on this briefly. People ask sometimes, like, how many drum kits do you have? I want to use this to punctuate the relationships thing again. And I don't actually know the exact number, because there's certain finishes and we have enough drums in that particular finish to make 2 drum kits. So is that 2 drum kits, or is that one? Anyway, point being, the drum kits that I have on the show are all from a 2 decades long relationship that I've had with Pearl.
Sure.
The cymbals that I have on the show, that's all I just got a certificate in the mail. I wanted to say the other day, but I actually think it was at least a couple of years ago. And it was like from Zildjian. And it was like, the congratulations on 20 years of being a Zildjian. I was like, oh my God.
I know. Yeah.
Yes. Here's the 20 more.
Yeah.
20 more.
20 more. Yep.
Yeah.
40 more. Kathleen Kelly says hello, by the way, too, Jeff's wife. So
oh, cool. Yes. And if they're watching, then they'll hear this. Perhaps I will see you guys at the NAMM show, because I guess there's going to be, the normally Anaheim winter NAMM is actually going to be in the summer, I guess, in June.
That's right.
Something like this. Yeah.
I think it's going to be 3 days instead of 4.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. In June.
Yeah.
And I mean,
that's usually when I have. Oh, sorry. Go on.
I was gonna say, depending on what's happening, in the world, I'm thinking I'm gonna
exactly.
Go out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll be off at that time. You're about to say you'll have a little break at that.
I believe. Well, so NAMM is usually a bit of a game time decision, because it kind of does. If it's in June, which I think it is, we will actually be working.
You will.
So it's kind of a matter of if there's a day off that I have in the schedule, or if we finish a day early enough that I can get down and make my way down there and see some folks and everything. But I enjoy it, because it's my opportunity to see a lot of cats from my companies, because many are not located here. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
and even ones that do have a, you know, West Coast office, there's an East Coast branch as well, you know, with people that I don't get to see as frequently. So,
And I have to say, since I left Zildjian, I'd gone basically every year up until just the last one.
mhm.
And I loved going, as a civilian, because I could just go and hang and see guys like you and not be working, not be sort of
Yes,
tied to that booth all day long
yes.
and losing my voice or whatever. But uh,
Yes, yes.
so
No, it's
yeah,
for me. It's fun because I pop in and I like diddy bop around and I see people and I say hi bye and I go.
yeah,
Whereas like if you actually have to be responsible for working, like my buddy Sean Halley, my partner actually on this record that I did or that we did a couple of years ago under the name Fraud Profits. But Sean has always worked in the industry. He's always worked for a guitar effects processing thing, or he's worked for Avid, formerly, you know,
yeah.
Digidesign. And yes, invariably, voice would last a day and a half of the NAMM show, and he would spend the last, you know, 2 days. You know?
Yeah. Oh, it's hard work. It really is.
Yeah. Well, and
It's
you're
hard work.
screaming over, you know, a million musicians playing a
That's
million
right.
instruments at the same
Yeah.
time.
I know. I know. No, it's classic. Like you'll have someone in my old life, I'd have someone asking me a question about, a ride cymbal, and a guy to
Mhm.
my left crashing a crash as loud as
Right.
and I'm
Correct.
going, he's, it's a
Correct.
20-inch and it's, yeah,
Correct.
it's
Okay,
like
now
that.
here, hey, I'm going to do this, Johnny. Now this is fun because a lot of the time when I chat to people, I I'm taking questions and I'm sharing answers, and so whereas like I don't get to chat to you enough, so I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
I want to ask you to share in your X number of years in artist relations. Share with me the craziest thing that's ever happened. Now you could name names because since you're not working in that field, like I can't write a tell-all. I can't write a tell-all because I want to continue to work. So I can't name any names, right? I can say this one time I was working with this one artist in this one city and this happened, but I
Uh,
can't say who it was. So you could, but I won't put you up to that. But yeah, what's like the craziest thing?
oh man.
What's like the one thing that you just were like, are you kidding me with this right now? Like what's
Boy,
that?
it's funny. I
You're
there's
like, well, there
probably
was this guy named Nate Morton once, and
there's probably a million, and it's
Mhm.
to just think of one right now. I will say that well, I would sort of be naming names, but
Name names. Like,
there,
anybody ever call you in the middle of the night, like, oh my God, I'm on the gig and it's an hour and a half from your house, but I just broke my this, and can you
oh
bring
yeah,
it to me? And you're like, are you joking?
I had a
Really? That?
guy I had a guy call me one time a
Mhm.
long time ago on the weekend before we all had cell phones, and he was in jail and wanted me to wire him some money, and
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's that is
I won't, and
crazy.
it's no one that we know,
Yeah.
but I won't, so I won't name names, but
No,
I
no,
mean,
no,
it's
no, no,
just
no.
crazy stuff like that I'm just trying to think of something that,
Now, this
there's,
was a person that you knew primarily professionally,
yeah,
because that's like something. Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, yeah, I know, that's maybe not a good, probably not
No,
a, not
no,
a
that is
good,
crazy. That's actually crazier than anything that I even thought of in
yeah,
my head.
that's pretty
Wow.
crazy. That was early on in my career. It was, God, I mean, I was probably only at that point working at Zildjian maybe a year or two, and and I don't think anything ever since that time ever was remotely close to that, but that was
That's
definitely a
crazy.
new experience. Yeah.
Okay, I have another question for you.
Okay.
No, this is good. This is good. Let's see. If you could summarize your, because we haven't, in fairness, we haven't chatted that much since you've left Zildjian. So
Yeah.
I, in my
Yeah.
head, I still have. I mean, I see your posts on Facebook, and I know that you're working with Steve. This feels silly. I can't even say it without chuckling to myself. Ugh. But I know that you're doing that, but I do know you primarily still from like the Zildjian thing. In all of your time and all of your career and like you started at Zildjian like here, and then like when you left, like I said, like you like everything. If you could somehow distill that down into like one or two like life lessons, Like, what would you say? What would you say would be a takeaway, like a life lesson from working at Zildjian?
That's a great question. Well, I think a lot of the things you and I have been talking about today, just, treating people with respect. I always felt that was the key thing, and I got that from Armin Zildjian. And it wasn't something that Armin
Mm,
Zildjian told me to do or said, or Lenny as well. Lenny and Armin both were of that generation where they were very
right.
just respectful of people. They were just great humans. And you learn by example. And I spent a lot of time with those guys. When I started there, we traveled together to trade shows, and I'd just be around them at a dinner, with Louis Belson and Elvin Jones or somebody, or Roy Haynes. And I knew enough when I was young to just
Yeah.
kind of shut up and take it in, and
Right.
and listen, and eventually over time, those guys got to know me, and I think I think I had proven that I had the respect and the trust of Armin and Lenny, so that Louis Belson would then call me, or Steve Gadd, or Peter Erskine, or any one of the guys, and um, Roy Haynes, and so I guess to distill it all down, I think that there's no substitute for just being a good person, and just treating people, no matter who they are, what they are, how famous or not famous they are, the same,
Right.
or
Right.
as much as you can, and always try to
Well,
live
and to
by
your
those.
point, and that's and I will corroborate your own testimony by virtue of the fact that I remember when I was just starting out my little relationship with Zildjian, and I could call and catch you on the phone. Like, I'm like a pipsqueak, and you would make the time to actually chat to me or rap to me about things. And I remember at one point, Kirsten, when I first moved out to LA, and again, still, I'm a pipsqueak. I'm out and I'm trying to hustle. This is to your point about Zildjian and treating people with respect, regardless, and all of it, and you exemplifying that. And I remember Kirsten and I would go and I would, like, exchange some crack symbols, or whatever it was. Every now and then she, slipped me a symbol out of the used bin or whatever. And I would just be like, one day I'm gonna have like a big gig so that I can repay you for, all the kindness that you've shown me. And I remember Kirsten going, why? The treatment doesn't get any better. Right?
That's
Like, in other
Kirsten,
words,
yeah.
yeah, in other words, you're already getting the star treatment. Like, you're like, everybody gets the same treatment, and I just remember being like, wow, that's amazing. And so it's
That's
no
great.
wonder. It's also why I it's why when I talk about, my companies, I talk about having a personal and professional relationship. You know, it's like, we're rapping now. You're not a children. We're just hanging out talking,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And
Exactly.
like Kirsten, if I call Kirsten and whatever, have a 20-minute conversation, it's just as likely that 15, like the first 5 minutes of that is, hey, I'm doing this thing. Can I possibly get some sticks? And I crack my this symbol and da 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 da. And she's like, okay, sure, da, da, da. And then I'll go, okay, now the important stuff. How's the family? How's
Yeah.
everybody?
Yeah.
How's it going? You know what I mean? And then we'll spend
Yeah.
the next 20 minutes talking about, kids. So
The important
let's see, what
stuff.
else. What
Exactly.
else? What else do I get to ask you? So are you working with Steve every day? Like, are you in a permanent position where are you managing?
I'm helping him. I'm managing some aspects of what he does, but no, it's not to that level where I'm sort of,
Okay.
got my fingers into everything. And I work with Peter Erskine and
Okay.
and Rick Murata and Danny Serafin. But I have to tell you, it's a lot of that stuff has, for a lot of people, has sort of slowed down with the last couple of years, the changes in the world. So it's sort of
Hmm.
coming back a little bit. Peter's been traveling and sort of back out there, but I don't have to tell you that,
Sure.
2020, it's just everything sort of screeched to a halt. And
Oh
and
yeah.
and if those guys are watching, I hope they don't take this the wrong way, but I sort of enjoyed just doing these types of things that we're doing right now. And
Hmm.
and my band wasn't playing, but I started playing in a band again years ago, and that started to become a really I mean, it was instantly a fun thing, but it became a much bigger thing in my life than I thought it would be
Hmm.
in terms of just how involved I am in the band business part of it, and just, playing drums again.
Were
It's
you playing full time before finding your way into artist relations?
I was playing into my mid-20s, and then
Okay.
I moved to LA. But we'll save that for the next one that we do, where you get to ask me all the questions. But I could so relate to what you were talking about in terms of like, moving to LA Weekly auditions and all that stuff. But
Hmm.
I
One of
was
the
just
things
gonna
that I
say,
was afraid of. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
the last thing I was going to say is, and you probably know this, is um, 2015, my son John Jr. and his wife Keely had our granddaughter Fiona. And then in 2018, they had our grandson Dylan. And so I would trade everything to just spend, I swear to, as God is my witness, if I could spend every minute with those two kids, and not even my own kids. I don't care about them. That's what happens. You'll see when you become a grandparent, you won't care about your own kids anymore. It's like, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, who?
So,
It's the
so my
grandkids.
so my mom and I, like anyone and their mom, we have disagreements. And so my mom, she with my kids, a little bit kind of was like, well, I think you should do this with the kids, and I think you should do this, and I think that this one should wear that, and da, da, da. And I'm kind of like, Mom, you're not the mom here, you're the grandma, right? And she said to me, oh, so I guess we're just supposed to show up with gifts and give love and then go away. Or she said something, what did she say? She said something like that. We're just supposed to show up with gifts and then leave. And I said, I mean, yeah, that's
Yeah,
about the
I'm
size of it.
I'm
You're the
happy with
grandma,
that.
like,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So yeah. So I definitely can see the merits of being the grandparent.
Oh,
You get
it's
to be the
it's
just
so great.
just do all the fun stuff. Just do the fun stuff.
You just do the fun stuff. And in fact, my son and his wife have to tell me mainly.
Mm,
Kelly's much better than I am about this, but they tell me to just sort of put the brakes on with the gifts, because every time we see them, I want to give them something. And
right.
kids, they get sort of conditioned, they can kind
Yeah.
of expect it. They call me Pops. Did you bring anything, Pops? And I'll be like, well, yeah, actually I did. I got some dinosaurs, or I got some, crayons or whatever. But oh, it's so
Nice.
great. It's
Nice.
so great.
Well, see, I have a 4-year old, so I'm already well. Only I have all of the. I'm already going to be mistaken for his grandfather, but I also have the responsibility of actually being his father. Like I'm just preparing for it. I'm preparing for the day that someone goes, "Oh, how old is your grandson?"
You don't have to worry about that.
I'm
You
mentally
don't have
preparing for it. It's gonna happen.
you don't have to worry. Well, listen, we're going to have to do another one of these, because I did want to ask you a few more questions about the show, but I think we should
If
just
you,
save it.
Johnny, you can do it. If you want to ask questions, I promise to give you very brief answers.
No, no, no. It's just, I'm realizing we've been going for a while. Here's what I wanted to
Sorry.
ask you. And you already answered. I just made a couple of questions earlier, and you answered the first one, I think. The show is shot live.
Part of it.
Part of it. Part of it. It
Part of it.
is. Is it?
Short story. Short story. The
Yep.
beginning is blind auditions. We do rehearsals. We shoot a bunch of shows. They chop them up. They make episodes. The end is live. It's
The end is live.
day to day, week to week, live.
Yep.
So like today, in a little under 3 hours, I will be on stage playing live.
Yeah. And it is live. And that was because I wondered if it was live to tape, in case there's any, but no. So it's live. So when you guys hit the red light, it's for real live. That's great. And
Yes.
and that's great. I assume that's what it was. And I wondered if maybe I didn't have that right. So
No, about that part, you are correct. If I wanted to,
that's so cool.
if I ran out into the middle of the stage screaming, ah, it would be on TV. Well, it probably wouldn't be on TV because they'd like cut away while security wrestled me to the floor and dragged me out. And they called someone to come finish the show on drums. So it probably wouldn't be on TV, but yes, there you go.
Oh, cool. And I question I had is, how much, like in terms of preparation for you in the band, and I think I know the answer. Reading is, I'm sure, some part of it, a big part of it, small part of it. Charts,
For me,
or is it for you? Yeah. Or is it just tunes that
again,
you learn?
I promised you short answers, and so I'm going to give you a short answer.
Yeah.
I have what the guys in the band refer to as my musical algebra. I can basically, at this point, in terms of the songs we're doing, which are primarily in 4/4, primarily Western music, right?
Yeah.
Primarily pocket, much of it, boom bap, boom boom bap. I can, generally speaking, listen down to a song once, make my musical algebra, and then I'm pretty much ready to play it.
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes, depending on the tune, if it's a tune that I have never heard, well, no, usually it's pretty good. Usually I'm pretty okay. Some of my
Yeah.
charting requires a little like a vague familiarity with the song because like I may have something where I've written hits. And so if I don't know what hits there are, like if I
Yeah.
know that the
Yeah.
hit is like bing, bom, 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 dee ba dum, bang, okay, cool, right hits. But if I didn't know that, then I'd be like, oh, what
Yeah.
hits?
Yeah.
But yes, the guys read charts. The guys have iPads with charts. In the very beginning of the show, we had actually physical paper charts, and very quickly with the volume of material, I mean, we had literally two giant road case trunks of multiple notebooks, multiple phone books thick of all
Yeah.
these paper
Yeah.
charts. And that was very quick. That was very early into the show because you got whatever 5 guys in the band times 200 songs that we have to learn for blind audition season 1, and immediately I went, that system is not going to work for me. And so that's when I sort of started to put together my little thing, and I literally type my chart. I type it in letters and numbers on my computer, and then I arrange them just in a list like that, and I can read them down and play. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I've done a couple of little tutorials here and there on that if anyone's interested. And then even on my drum videos, many of the ones that I put up earlier anyway, I've gone back and I actually made a Dropbox where you could actually see the video and then you can click to the Dropbox and there's actually the chart and an explanation for it. Yeah. It's funny.
Oh,
I'll
that's
send
great.
you something. Yeah.
Yeah, please do. And
It's
I know you mentioned
developed.
this earlier too, that you're doing, when you can fit it into your schedule, you do some private lessons. Do you do that like through Skype or through
Primarily remote through
remotely?
Facebook,
Yeah.
through Zoom.
Zoom
I had
rather.
done a
Sorry. Yeah.
couple of lessons on Skype about 20 years ago, and I was just so disenchanted because, at that time, the medium was not nearly as developed as it is now. Whereas with the pandemic, Zoom, like everybody
Yeah.
knows how to use Zoom now. Everybody. And so I started teaching. The learning curve was definitely like rocky, but now I feel very confident and very comfortable teaching in that universe. And so the vast majority of my lessons are remote. And the cool thing about it is like I've got a couple students in Seattle, got one in Slovenia, one in Germany,
Wow.
guys on the East Coast, guys in Canada. So so yeah, it's enabled me to basically do a lot more of that.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
If you're interested, NateMorton.com.
Yeah, Nate. Okay, NateMorton.com. Well, when I said Skype, as soon as I said Skype, I'm thinking, what am I like? We're on Zoom right now. Of course, it's Zoom. That is the medium of
Yeah,
the standard.
definitely.
Yeah, the standard bearer of medium. So,
Completely.
but we will do another one, and I only say we should wrap it up because it's nearly 6 my time, and
Ooh.
I thought I would.
And we
try
started
to,
later than you usually go anyway as well. Thank you for
yeah, yeah.
accommodating me, by the way, for
Oh,
that.
absolutely. No, come
Yeah.
on. Thank you for like I just so everybody understands this. Nate reached out to me over the weekend. We hadn't been in touch in a while, and I was so excited. I swear I was buzzing around. I just was like, "We got to do one of these. We got to do one of these." So I became sort of obsessed, saying, "Let's do it this time." So thank you for working this into your schedule too.
Of
I really
course.
appreciate that.
Of course. Of course.
You are the best, buddy, really. And
Man,
I'm so happy, not surprised, but so happy to see you so successful and doing so well. And you have a beautiful family. Your kids are awesome. Your wife is beautiful. You've just, you deserve everything you have.
I can't complain. I can't complain. I'm very, very fortunate. Very fortunate. Yeah.
That's absolutely. Well, all right. I'm gonna
Yes.
we'll say goodbye to everybody, but don't you go anywhere because we'll say goodbye in our little Zoom room. But
Sure.
everybody, thanks for watching. Hey Nate, Border Cafe. Perry James said, "Hey Nate, Border Cafe?" ?
Yes. Ask them, they didn't rebuild the one in Harvard Square. So Border Cafe is maybe my all-time favorite restaurant. And the one that I used to go to, I started going to when I was at Berkeley. It's in Harvard Square.
The
But
Harvard Square
Bob
one, yeah.
Murphy, who's the manager there, I talked to not long ago, and he told me, yeah, Nate, it burned down. And I was like, what? And I went and I looked it up, and it burned down. And at that time, this is some time ago, I feel like this is maybe just pre-pandemic or maybe just getting into the thing of it. And at that point, it did not seem like there was momentum to reconstruct it. And so I don't know. Do you happen to know?
I don't know. I know the one in Saugus, Mass on Route 1 is still,
Right, that one's
they
still there.
relocated
Right.
it to the other side of onto the northbound side.
Okay.
Some years ago.
Yeah,
And then in the old spot, they put a place called, my band played there last year. In the old Border Cafe on Route 1. But I think, I don't know that they've rebuilt the one in Harvard Square.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
you're
Bob
right. I
didn't
think-
seem optimistic about them rebuilding it, which is a shame. Which is, I have a lot of memories there, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great spot. Yeah,
Sorry,
I know.
you better cut out, or else I'm gonna start telling another story or something.
All right. And I'm going to shout out to Kathleen Kelly, who is watching. We already said hello to Kathleen. I'll say hello
Yes,
again.
yes.
And my friend Christian Thornton, who owns the best restaurant on Martha's Vineyard called Atria in Edgartown. If you ever get to Edgartown, ever get to the vineyard, I'm taking you to Atria. It's the
Atria.
best restaurant. Yeah.
Okay.
It's awesome. Christian's, he's the chef, he's the owner, he's the best.
Awesome.
And his son's going to be a drummer, which is cool too. So
Oh, excellent.
All right.
How old is his son?
14, I think he told me. I helped him get a drum set, and
So he's in
Yeah.
Is he a freshman in high school,
I think a
or is he going to be a
freshman.
freshman?
Freshman or
Tell him to
sophomore,
reach out.
probably
Tell
freshman.
him to reach out to me and say hi and introduce himself,
Wow.
and
Okay.
we'll chat. Yeah, of course.
Okay, Christian, did you hear that? Your son's going to get to reach out to Nate. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I mean, it's easy. It's easy to do. I'm easy to find. And if you want, I can. I mean, yeah, you email me through my website, and if you do, just be like, what's his name? What's the son's name?
I don't know his son's name. He's saying
Find
they
out his
do.
son's name,
I'll
or just
find
be
out
like,
his
yeah, this is the son of the restaurateur chef that John was talking about with you online, and then I'll be like, okay, bam.
Wow. Can I
try
not
my
listen
best.
from you too?
Shush. I try my best to I hate to be so trite or cliche as to say you're giving something back, but it's like I was starving for like access to information. I grew up my high school years in Columbia, Maryland. And so there was a saloon at the time. At that time, it was called the Blue Moon Saloon. I think it's called something different now, but it is still there. And they had live music. And I would remember I would go and hear like this one particular jazz group play there sometimes. And I'd go to the guy, like the drummer, and I'd be like, because I was starving for information.
Yeah,
I wanted information,
sure.
and I would say like, do you do this like for a living? And it was like, no, I'm an orthopedic surgeon, or I'm a dentist, or I'm an accountant. And like finding an actual professional to ask questions or to try to learn anything from was impossible. I mean, now it's obviously much easier, internet,
Yeah.
etc. So much stuff out there. But I remember at that time just like starving for information. So to whatever extent I ever can, even this kind of thing, I'm like always happy to try to like share. I'm flattered that anybody would ever think that I have anything interesting enough to say, that they would even pay attention to me.
That's
So it's cool.
Great. No, and
know?
it's, I know what you're saying too. When you're young and someone gives you information like that, it's huge. It
100%.
it really
100%.
really goes a long way. And Christian's telling me his son's name is Wyatt. So
Wyatt. Okay.
Wyatt,
Well, tell
okay.
Wyatt to reach out to me. I'm very easy to find, and just put,
Fantastic.
Wyatt Christopher's Christian's son.
Christian's son.
So yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching. A big hand for my friend Nate Morton. And I'm good for recipes, he says. And Nate, thank you so much. And don't go
Of
away. I'm
course.
gonna end the live stream, and then we'll say goodbye.
Absolutely,
But,
buddy.
All right. Thanks again, my friend.
Absolutely my pleasure, Johnny.
Thanks, buddy.